We've never wanted to push her, we've never wanted to sort of decide for her what she's going to do and push her that way. And we want, and it's one of both our regrets that we can't play a musical instrument properly, because we would love to. I'd love to be able to go bash away on the piano or whatever. And
yes, so we still weren't thinking of a musical career.
We found a very curious thing as regards parental musical ability. One would think that being a musician might help, but in our sample it looked exactly the other way around, that the children who had non-musical parents seemed to be more among the high ability children, and we were very puzzled with that. Children of musicians had quite high expectations placed on them, and of course music was quite normal in the family. Everybody did it, so they didn't really get a sense of themselves as in any way special. Whereas the children of the non-musical families got the idea of themselves as special. I'm the musician in the family, and that was a very strong motivator for them to continue with music.
David Thornton is 14 and plays the euphonium. He's been at the school for 3 years.
For the start, it was just kind of something new, a new toy kind of thing, but it was something different.
When he was at primary school, his first teacher was Mr. Sproston, and he offered him a euphonium to bring home if we signed this piece of paper, and you said, as long as it's not a violin.
As long as it's not a violin, he can, I'll agree.
We've never played any instruments. We didn't take any interest in classical music until David started to play, and then we started going to concerts with him.
I mean, he gets way above your head. I say, not being musical, he's talking something we don't know a lot about.
I enjoy it when I'm in a practice room, the actual making music, and I enjoy the fact that I think to myself that I'm improving. You know, the quest for being better is. And on the performance on stage, again, enjoyment. You know, you see the people in front of you and you think, wow, they're listening to me. And that's a great feeling.
The researchers found this enjoyment of performing seemed to be an increasingly significant and motivating factor as the student grew older. Ben Nabarro is 16.
My earliest memory is sitting with my father at the piano. Him being a conductor, I used to study his scores, and at a very young age I used to go and sit by him and bang away at the end of the piano or something. So I always had music in the house. I think my first formal lesson was from a teacher who used to come round to my house, and when I was very young, probably about 3 or 4, and I used to actually hate playing the violin. And every time he used to knock on the door, I used to be sitting eating my tea. And I'd run upstairs and hide in my room. I hated it because I was too young.
As musical parents, we had great aspirations for Benjamin, mainly because both my wife and I came to music very late. We were both from working class backgrounds. There was no music in the house at all. It's no good saying when they're 16, oh, I wish they'd started the piano when they were 5. It's too late. I feel very strongly that the environment that children are brought up in is profoundly important. But the one example I will cite with Benjamin is that he's got absolutely perfect pitch. We first became really aware of when he was quite young and we're out in the street and a bus went by and the brakes squealed and he said, that's a B flat. Where does it come from? I mean, he had to be born with that. You can't learn perfect pitch. Ben was born with something, and the environment he's been brought up in has fostered it to the extent that he's become a very talented musician.
I wasn't self-motivated very much. I used to have to be told to practice. I used to enjoy playing a lot, but not actually practicing. There's definitely a difference between practicing and performing. When you're practicing, you have to be much cooler. When you're performing, you have to be something like a circus act, where you're actually attracting the audience and making them listen to you.
Did you practice?
As the studies progressed, Dr. Jane Davidson, herself a singer, joined the team. The researchers used more structured interviews to uncover greater detail about the motivation to practice that pupils had, what they felt about music, and the role their parents played. Claire Maiden is 15 and has been at the school for 4 years.
Ich dachte, ihr habt einen Unfall gehabt.
Nein, nein. Tut mir leid.
Shall we have a little bit of reading in German then, Claire?
I got the inspiration to practice when I first came to Chetham's from seeing other children perform. And that was the real thing that made me want to practice. It's something that's inside of me. If I think to myself, I'm sat in my dormitory at night, yeah, I want to do some practice now, I'll go and do it. Right from when I first started playing the piano, my dad always used to help me. He used to sit with me for a couple of hours after working all day. I think musicality is something that comes from within you. You know, if you get a piece that you really love, I feel it. It isn't just in my hands, it isn't just in my fingers. It's not just, you know, me playing the notes. It's all over my body, I feel it.
The influence of teachers on the pupils' motivation and techniques were also studied by the psychologists. Andrew Kingslow is 18. A guitarist when he first came to Chetham's 4 years ago, he's now been encouraged to move to percussion.
At the moment, I'm discovering a new technique with a teacher I've got at the moment. It's about being relaxed when you play. It's about the movements of your body and the movements being natural. So if I play one now that's tense, it'll sound like that. Because I'm tense and all of my arms moving, it's more tense. If I have to do it relaxed from the wrists, it resonates more throughout the instrument. It gives the instrument more time to sound.
But on the concert platform, for Andrew, technique takes a backseat to the thrill of performance.
You've got to go out there and you've got to play the piece as well as you can and get it across to the audience. So it's an experience for them rather than just watching someone play notes or something.
Michael Howe, John Sloboda and Jane Davidson's studies show that not all the pupils who were successful had shown musical ability when they were very young. Far more important were practice and parental support. Their research found that by the time musicians leave Chetham's at the age of 18, they will have averaged around 13,000 hours of formal and informal practice. This practice is essential for musical success, they argue. Even Mozart had to put in many hours. And while ability like Mozart's is rarely seen, far more of us could become competent musicians for personal enjoyment if we worked at it, particularly if, again like Mozart, we had parental support and help when young.
We find in almost any sphere in which people excel that the people who do well have a very strong sense of direction, a great deal of independence. They are very, very highly motivated. They have enormous perseverance. They concentrate on tasks. They're very, very devoted. And to a huge extent, the personal qualities, especially the motivation, also factors like self-confidence, things that we associate perhaps more with personality than with ability as such, these become enormously important.
Music has great mystery for most of us. That is part of its appeal. To understand the development of musical ability is a complex task. Personality, parental help, dedication and self-motivation all seem to play an important part. Researching the musical histories of children may seem to be a surprising way of trying to understand intricate psychological processes. But in a subject where there are such complex developmental influences, It seems to be a valuable way of getting a little closer to unravelling the mystery.